Am I the idiot for making my pregnant wife cry by calling her less of a person? This all boils down to my wife's father. I have a 6-year-old son that started living with me as his primary guardian when he was 3 and his mom went back to school. I met my wife through work, and I also met her father, who worked at the same company in a higher role than both of us. My wife knew I had a son, but I said I wouldn't introduce them unless we became a serious couple, because that wouldn't be fair to him. When my wife did meet my son, they got along really well. I invited her and her father over for dinner one night, and her father met my son for the first time. He was weird and awkward around my son and made strange comments about his appearance. His mom is black. I confronted him after the dinner, and he made some pretty pathetic excuses. After that, I asked him to not contact me outside of work matters and asked her for space. A couple weeks later, my wife told me she had completely cut her father off for his beliefs. Our relationship became stronger than ever. When we got engaged, she said she didn't want her father at the wedding. We ended up both transferring to other companies. As far as I knew, he was gone from both of our lives for good. My wife is pregnant and due in a month. She has already started maternity leave and has been looking for a new job to start after maternity leave because she doesn't want to stay at her current company. Yesterday, she sat me down and told me her dad got her an interview for a job at our old company. She also told me she has been talking to him for a couple months and wants to know how I would feel about him knowing our future child. I told her the truth. I told her I felt betrayed and I felt like she betrayed my son, who she claimed to think of as her son as well. I told her that she would even ask me, which makes her less of a person in my eyes. She started crying and asked me what kind of insensitive jerk would call the woman pregnant with his kid less of a person. I told her that was how I felt, and although the language was harsh, I felt it matched what she was asking for. After cooling off, I'm now unsure if my word choice was warranted and wondering if I was an idiot for speaking to her that way while she is pregnant and more emotionally vulnerable. I could have just said I wasn't okay with what she was proposing without insulting her character. Now for a few comments before the update. Not the idiot. As the saying goes, if there's a racist at the table with 10 other people, you have 11 racists. Your father-in-law has shown he's a racist. Even your wife knows that her dad is a racist as she had cut him off. Your father-in-law has not made any demonstration of repentance, yet your wife wants to invite that toxic presence into your home where it can poison your eldest child. What did she expect you to do and say? You're right that your words were harsh. But harsh was appropriate. It takes a lesser person to want to invite toxicity into the home, and that's what your wife did. She is the one who needs to apologize for even the suggestion of her father coming back into your personal lives. That she's pregnant is not an excuse for the extreme breach of trust she committed. Comment 2. You're the idiot. Less of a person. Really? You have every right to be upset with her, but that's truly a disgusting thing to say to your pregnant wife. Now for the update. My wife and I went to couples counseling. When we called to book, there was one counselor that had a last-minute opening and the rest had long waits. There was a reason for this. If you ever need to book a therapist, don't book the one with immediate availability. Anyway, so we went this morning. First and foremost, the therapist would not listen to us as we tried to explain why we were there. So much time was wasted because she kept insisting on talking about and asking about topics that weren't what we needed to talk about. My wife and I both repeatedly tried to explain the issue, and the therapist kept saying, "The surface issue is rarely the problem, it's the issue underneath that." It took half an hour for us to get her to actually address what occurred. When she finally listened to us explain what happened, she flat out said that I was wrong, my wife was right. I need to apologize for what I said and accept that her dad would always be important to her and had a right to be in his grandchild's life. I'm pretty sure therapists are supposed to be a bit more neutral. Anyway, she could tell I was irritated and asked what I was feeling. I said I felt deceived. I felt like my wife pretended to be someone, and now I'm meeting the real her. My wife started to cry and the therapist said my answer was unproductive. I asked my wife, "What about you? How do you feel?" She said she felt lost. She said she's lost her family one by one because they did things she couldn't accept. Realizing the child she was carrying would never know her biological family upset her, and it made her wonder if her standards are too high. The therapist jumped in and said it's important to meet people where they are out, and cutting people out isn't the answer. The therapist ended things saying we had a lot of work to do but could fix things. When we left, my wife said, "She was very opinionated for a therapist." I agreed. She asked if we could go get brunch and just talk, and I agreed to that too. We talked. I apologized for the way I spoke to her. She apologized for keeping secrets from me. I told her I would never be okay with her dad being part of our kids' lives. She said she understood. I also said I thought it was a bad idea to go back to the old company, but ultimately that's her choice. She said she was going to tell her dad that meeting the baby isn't on the table, and then see his reaction and go from there. I thanked her for telling me. She asked me if I was thinking about leaving her. I was honest and said I had thought about it, but that wasn't what I wanted. We both got very emotional. She asked if I loved her, and I said yes. I asked if she loved my son, and she said yes. I asked if she thinks she'll love the baby more, and she said no. She hesitated, but I'm trying not to read into that. I feel we made some progress, and we will continue to work on our relationship, without the terrible therapist, and try to be our best for each other and the children. Comment 1. Sounds like the therapist was the genius in this scenario. See her one time and you guys do what you weren't able to do before seeing her. Tempted to ask for a referral just in case I ever need it. Comment 2. I know you love your wife, but please look out for your son. Her father is a racist. His racism won't negatively impact her or the child you share, but it definitely will impact your son. I think she is saying what you want to hear at the moment, but I think this issue will come up again. Especially after your baby is born. She gave up her family for you and your son. She is already starting to show signs of cracking. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually she starts to resent you and your son for her not being able to see her father or have her child grow up with a loving albeit racist grandfather. The person with the potential to be hurt most is your son. I get your marriage is important, but protecting your son is more important now. For the next story. Am I the idiot for prioritizing my son's dog over my wife's pregnancy? When my son, 14, was 8, we got a dog. He's half Great Dane and half some dog my friend's dog met during an unauthorized absence. My son loves this dog and does all the care for him, except vet stuff, and is a very responsible dog owner. This dog is pretty much his best friend. My wife is 12 weeks pregnant, and ever since we confirmed the pregnancy she has been acting weird around the dog. She avoids him, puts her hands over her stomach when he is around, and jolts whenever he makes noise. Today she told me she wants to rehome the dog. I asked her what she was talking about. She said she has been having anxiety that he will jump on her. This is completely unreasonable. He doesn't jump on people. We trained him not to jump on people or run into people very young because he is half Great Dane, and I felt this was important for all dogs, but especially one who could possibly grow to such a large size, which he did. There is no reason for her to think the dog will jump on her. She said that there is no way to know for sure that the dog won't jump on her, and if he does, our baby could be hurt. This dog has never so much as growled at her. She said even if the dog doesn't jump on her, her anxiety about it is bad for her health. She said she needs the dog elsewhere for her safety and the baby's. I told her that there was no way. My son got this dog right after he lost his mom and imprinted on him hard. Sometimes I think he loves the dog more than me. I'm not taking his dog. The dog didn't do anything. My wife said I am prioritizing the dog over her pregnancy. The dog isn't a threat to her pregnancy. If this were any other unreasonable request, I would just do it because she is pregnant. I just can't break my son's heart over a fear she has that makes no sense. Am I being an idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Not the idiot. Animals are lifetime responsibilities. Pawning them off because she got pregnant would be a shitty thing to do. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Don't you dare give away your son's dog. He didn't ask for you to remarry and have a new child. Your son will never forgive you, or your new wife, if you allow her to continue to push this topic. She needs to actively work on coping with her anxiety. May I suggest therapy? Now for the update. We read some stuff about pregnant women developing sudden fear and hatred towards pets and how common this phenomenon is. Several people shared their personal stories on my original post, but I couldn't show her those because I didn't tell her about the original post. There were too many people saying mean things on it. But I found similar stories elsewhere online, and she found them reassuring. We've been training the dog on how to be around babies. Well, my son is training him. So far, a former coworker of mine and a neighbor have let me borrow their babies for an evening, and both times went really well. So we will continue to enforce appropriate baby behavior with the dog. My wife visited her OBGYN to discuss her fear and anxiety, and she again was reassured that many women face similar experiences when pregnant. She is going to start seeing someone to discuss her changing emotional state. She also decided she wants to spend as little time as possible with the dog for now. So we've all been accommodating that, and the dog is now spending the majority of his indoor time in my son's room instead of the living room when my wife is home. So far the dog doesn't mind, as he sleeps in there anyway, and that's where his best friend lives. Our home continues to be harmonious. I appreciate all the people who provided productive information and outlooks on the last post. Comment 1. Wait, did I read that correctly? A couple coworkers let you borrow their babies? That's amazing and made me laugh out loud. Also, good job handling the situation tactfully but also standing your ground. Thanks for the update. Comment 2. Yay. I'm glad she decided to be honest with professionals about all this instead of digging her heels in and forcing you to get rid of him. I have a Great Dane that has been around all my nieces and nephews as babies and never once had he ever done anything to harm any of them. They're gentle giants, but I get people, including pregnant women, getting scared of their size. I truly hope she's able to get rid of this fear. Now, for the next story. Am I the idiot for letting my son go to Disneyland? I have a 6-year-old son, Jake, and we're currently staying with my brother, his wife, and their daughter, Abby, 17. Abby recently went through something really hard and traumatic. I feel for her with all my heart, and am doing all I can to be there for her. During this time, Abby's become really close to Jake. It was sweet enough at first, and even though Jake isn't one to sit in one place for long, he didn't say anything and allowed his cousin to cuddle and spend time with him. He does a lot for her and will wake her up when she takes naps for too long, will go out to the park with her to make sure she doesn't stay at home too long, etc. My sister-in-law was extremely appreciative of this, and Abby seems to be happier when he's around. Of course, Abby is in therapy, so I didn't think she was dependent on my son to get her through the day. But a couple weeks ago, Jake's paternal grandparents wanted to take him to Disneyland for a couple days and he was so excited. He kept telling everyone how much fun he was going to have and more. Abby didn't say much whenever he mentioned Disneyland, but my sister-in-law asked me if he was actually going multiple times. I said yes, why would I stop my son from going to Disneyland? She asked if his grandparents could take him on this trip another time, but I told her that wouldn't be possible. She was upset but stopped. The other day, his grandparents came to pick him up and he was sitting with Abby getting ready to go when she suddenly broke down crying. Jake got scared and started crying as well, so I separated them. They calmed down and Jake left for Disneyland some time later. My sister-in-law was furious. She came up to me and was like, "So you really let him go?" I said yes again, why wouldn't I? She was all like, "You saw how my daughter reacted to him leaving and you're still confused?" Apparently, Abby really didn't want him to go, and she cried because he was leaving. I told her that this was extremely unfair for her to say. My sister-in-law said that I was being unfair and that Disneyland is not more important than her daughter's well-being. I never said this, but I told her that my son isn't her emotional support dog, and while I'm very sorry about Abby, it isn't fair to put my 6-year-old son's life on pause. He's 6. It's unfair for her to force my son to give up things for the comfort of his cousin. Sister-in-law called me heartless and said she wants me gone from the house before Jake gets back because she isn't putting Abby through this again. My brother intervened and told her that she's acting irrationally, but she told him to STFU. It's been really tense, and while I did attempt to apologize, sister-in-law told me that the only apology she'd accept is one from Jake, but I'm not going to make him apologize, so am I the idiot? I really don't think so, but Abby is genuinely upset about Jake leaving. Edit. I was repeating my sister-in-law's words word for word but giving her the benefit of the doubt. I believe she meant that the only apology she'd accept is one in the form of Jake. Not that it makes it any better, but I don't think she actually wants him to say I'm sorry. But I could be wrong as well. Either way, I wasn't going to apologize the way she wanted me to. There's no updates, so here's the comments. Not the idiot. Abby has serious attachment issues. TBH, when Jake returns I would look into staying elsewhere to separate the two of them before her attachment to Jake grows even less healthy. Comment 2. Not the idiot. I don't sympathize with adults who act like you must have the capability to read their minds. Sister-in-law had every chance in the world to use her words and explain any feelings she had. She didn't do that. And even if she had, you are under no obligation to put your son's life on pause for your niece's sake. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to drop a like. It really helps the channel grow. See you next time.